The infinite voyage of those who refused to die in silence. The world was ending, but not with fire or war. It was ending with silence. For many years, people felt the quiet growing around them. Animals stopped singing. Winds stopped howling. Even the oceans lost their voice, as if the whole planet was holding its breath. No one knew why. No one knew how to stop it. Scientists tried explaining it. Philosophers wrote about it. Priests prayed about it. But the silence kept spreading until even the loudest city sounded like an empty room. On the final night, when the stars looked dimmer than ever, a group of people gathered on the last operational spaceport on Earth. They had one thing in common: none of them were willing to die quietly. They refused to accept that humanity's final chapter would end in mute darkness. Their ship, the Horizon Seeker, stood tall above them. It was not perfect. Parts of it were old, and other parts were untested. But it was the only ship capable of leaving the solar system. Their mission was simple and impossible at the same time. Keep humanity alive. Escape the dying silence. Search for a new beginning. Among them was Captain Orrin Hale, a man who lost his family to the spreading silence. He now carried a promise inside him: no more quiet endings. No more fading away. There was Lyra, a young engineer known for fixing machines that were considered impossible to repair. She was afraid of the silence more than anyone else. When she slept, she dreamed of it swallowing the sun. There was Jonah, the historian, who believed that the universe remembered everything. He wanted to keep humanity's story alive, even if humans had to travel forever. There was Mai, the navigator, whose calculations were said to be more reliable than most computers. She believed the silence wasn't natural. She believed something out there was taking sound away. They boarded the ship while the Earth remained still behind them. When the engines roared to life, it was the first real sound anyone heard in weeks. Some of them cried because even noise had become precious. The Horizon Seeker lifted from the ground like a last heartbeat. Humanity's final sound. As the ship left Earth's atmosphere, the crew looked down at the blue planet. From above, it looked peaceful, almost asleep. But they all knew the truth: Earth was fading. The silence was like a sickness, spreading through every living thing. Captain Orrin stood in front of the observation deck. His voice was steady when he spoke. "We carry the last echo of Earth with us. We do not surrender. We do not die in silence." The crew nodded. It was the closest thing to a promise they had. For the first few days, the journey felt ordinary. They adjusted to the routines of space travel. They checked supplies, tested engines, and made sure the ship's systems were stable. Mai plotted their long course out of the solar system. Jonah recorded every detail, believing future generations, if they survived, would need to understand how close they came to the end. But it didn't take long before something strange began happening. It started with Lyra. She noticed that the engine hum sounded softer. Not broken, just quieter. She checked the controls, the power sources, the sound sensors. Everything was working. But she knew something was wrong. Hours later, the sleeping quarters felt soundproof, even though they weren't designed that way. Footsteps were faint. Voices were lighter. Captain Orrin felt a chill when he spoke in the hallway and the echo didn't return. It was as if the silence from Earth was traveling with them. "We escaped the planet," Mai whispered, "but did we escape the silence?" No one had an answer. On the 10th day, Jonah heard something strange while listening to the radio system. It wasn't silence. It wasn't static. It was a whisper. At first, he thought it was interference. But the whisper kept forming patterns, like someone trying to speak through broken air. He rushed to the control room. "Captain, I think someone is out there." Orrin frowned. "There are no human ships beyond Mars." "Not anymore. I know. But listen." Jonah played the sound. Everyone leaned closer. The whisper was soft, like breath against cold glass. It stretched, pulled, broke, and returned. No language. No rhythm. Just the sound of something alive trying to speak. Mai's hands shook slightly as she calculated their position. "The signal isn't coming from behind us. It's coming from far ahead. Much farther than any known human probe has ever reached." Lyra whispered, so something is out there, and it's not silent. Jonah nodded slowly. Maybe they survived the silence. Or maybe they created it. This possibility hung heavily in the room. The silence that drained Earth was unnatural. Mai had believed this since the beginning. Now the evidence stood in front of them. Captain Orin made the decision quickly. We follow the signal. Everyone stared at him. Captain, Lyra said carefully, we don't know what it is. We also don't know why the universe is losing sound, Orin replied. If someone knows the answer, we must find them. We owe it to every voice that Earth lost. The ship changed course. The engines hummed a little softer than before, toward the whisper in the distance. The farther they traveled, the colder space felt. Not physical cold. A quiet cold. Space had always been silent, but this silence was different. Space normally carried the hum of engines, the small vibrations of life, the faint electronic songs of machines. But now even those sounds felt thinner. At night, the crew couldn't sleep well. They dreamed of standing on a dead Earth, watching the sky dim. Mai dreamed of stars disappearing one by one like candles being blown out. Jonah dreamed of giant shadows pressing their hands over the universe, muffling everything. Only Captain Orin didn't dream. His mind was sharp, awake, and filled with one thought: find the source. One evening, while everyone was resting, Orin stood alone on the observation deck. He stared at the endless stars. And then he noticed something. One of the stars flickered. Not like a normal star. It flickered like a signal. A pulse. A heartbeat. It was the same rhythm as the whisper Jonah had recorded. Orin called the others. The flickering star grew brighter and brighter until it formed a strange shape, a circle of light, like a door floating in the dark. The whisper returned, louder this time. Jonah stepped back. Captain. I don't think that's a star. Mai's voice trembled. It's an entrance. Lyra stared in awe and fear. A doorway in space. But to where? Orin answered, to whoever refused to die in silence, just like us. The ship drifted toward the shining circle. As they crossed its edge, the universe around them twisted. Colors stretched. Sounds bent. The whisper grew into a voice, but not a human one. They had crossed into the unknown. And there was no turning back. When the Horizon Seeker crossed the glowing ring, everything changed at once. The darkness of space disappeared. The silence vanished. The stars around them twisted into colors that did not exist on any human spectrum. Some appeared to breathe. Some shimmered like liquid. Some formed shapes that stretched and curled like living ribbons. The crew felt weightless, even though the ship's systems said gravity was stable. Their bodies felt lighter, as if their bones remembered how to float. What is this place? Lyra whispered. Mai checked her screens again and again, but nothing made sense. We're not in normal space. We're not in hyperspace either. It's some kind of in-between world. Jonah looked around with wide eyes, as if he were staring at the pages of a story he never imagined could exist. It feels like we're inside a thought, he said. Like the universe is dreaming. Orin stood near the window, calm but tense. His instincts were warning him. This place was beautiful, but in a different way, like a song without a beginning or end. A melody meant for ears that were not human. Then they heard it. A hum. Not mechanical. Not electronic. Alive. The ship moved forward on its own, carried by a force they could not detect. No one touched the controls, yet the engines glowed softly, responding to something unseen. Jonah whispered, "It wants us to go deeper. Or we're already caught," Mai said. Neither possibility was comforting. As they drifted farther, the beautiful colors dimmed and faded. The living stars stopped breathing. The rainbow ribbons froze still. The silence returned. This time it was different. Deeper. Older. A silence that felt like it had watched the birth of galaxies. Mai shivered. This place, it's dying too. Jonah nodded slowly. Maybe that's why it called to us. Maybe it wants help. No, Lyra whispered. It's warning us. Captain Orin didn't respond. His eyes were locked on something ahead. It was hard to see at first, like a shadow in a room made of darkness. But as they approached, The shape grew clearer. A structure floated at the center of this fading world. Massive. Ancient. Silent. It looked like a temple made of starlight and broken echoes. Its walls were cracked, and pieces of it drifted away like dust. It had once been beautiful, now it looked like a memory struggling to stay alive. Words appeared on their screens. Not typed. Not transmitted. "Remember US." Lyra gasped. "Who sent that?" Another line formed. "We are the first ones who refused to die." The crew exchanged frightened looks. Someone, or something, was speaking to them. The ship stopped on its own, hovering before the ancient structure. A long ramp of light stretched from the temple toward them, as if inviting them inside. Orin hesitated for the first time since leaving Earth. "My whispered, Captain, this could be a trap. Or a message," Jonah added. "The universe is losing sound. Something started it. Something might know how to stop it." Lyra swallowed hard. If this place is dying like Earth, maybe it's connected. Orin took a breath. "We go. Stay together. Stay alert." The ramp of light carried them forward. When they stepped off onto the surface of the structure, the floor felt soft, like standing on a heartbeat. The air vibrated not with sound, but with memories. The walls shifted. Images formed. Tall beings made of light. Shapes like flowing energy. Voices that shimmered instead of spoke. Jonah whispered, "These are not gods. They're not aliens like we imagine. They're something older. Something different." The images showed these ancient beings gathering around a collapsing star, weaving energy around it. They were trying to save something important, something invisible. "They're saving sound," Mai said in shock. "They're trying to keep it alive." The next images showed the beings failing. Darkness spreading. Sound dying. Worlds going silent. The final image showed only one thing. A ripple of silence flowing across the universe like a wave. Lyra stepped back. "That's the same silence that reached Earth." Orin clenched his jaw. "So the silence didn't start with us. It started with them." Jonah nodded. "And now they're gone." Then the walls pulsed once more. A final message formed slowly, painfully, like a voice struggling to speak for the first time in centuries. "Help US end the silence." The message faded, replaced by a glowing doorway deeper inside. Orin turned to the crew. "This isn't just a warning. It's a request. They want something from us." Mai's voice trembled. "Captain, if these beings couldn't stop the silence, how can we?" "We don't know yet," Orin said. "But if we turn back now, Earth dies. Everything dies." Lyra nodded. Jonah nodded. Mai hesitated, then nodded too. They stepped through the doorway. Inside was a chamber that looked like the inside of a star. The walls pulsed with fading energy. Cracks spread like veins across every surface. At the center floated a sphere of dim light. Jonah whispered, "This must be their core. The heart of this place." The sphere flickered weakly, like a candle in a strong wind. Suddenly a voice filled the room. Not spoken. Not heard. Felt. "We are the first ones. The keepers of sound. The makers of echoes." The crew froze. "The silence hunts all living songs. It will claim you too." Orin forced himself to speak. "Why? What is the silence?" The answer came after a long, painful pause. "The silence is what remains when hope dies. We created sound to fight it. But we failed." Lyra felt tears rise in her eyes. "Then what do we do?" The sphere dimmed further. "You must carry the last sound. Protect it. Spread it. Or all voices will fade forever." A small crystal of glowing light rose from the sphere. It drifted toward Orin. "Take the echo. Save what we could not." Orin reached out. The moment his hand touched the crystal, everything shook. The sphere cracked. The chamber trembled. The ancient temple began to collapse. The first ones gave one final message. "Run." The entire structure began to shake as soon as the crystal touched Captain Orin's hand. Cracks spread across the glowing walls like lightning. The soft floor beneath them turned solid, vibrating violently. "We need to go." Lyra shouted. Orin held the crystal tightly as the team ran toward the doorway. The ramp of light that had brought them in was flickering, becoming unstable. Jonah glanced back as they ran. The images of the first ones were fading, their shapes dissolving into dust-like motes of light. "They're disappearing," he whispered. "They waited for us," Mai said breathlessly. "They held on this long just to give us the crystal." A piece of the ceiling broke apart behind them, shattering into silent fragments. No explosion. No noise. Everything fell without sound. The silence felt hungry. The crew jumped onto the ramp of light just as the chamber split apart completely. The ramp carried them toward the ship, but halfway across it shattered like glass. They fell. But instead of hitting a surface, the space beneath them folded, twisted, and pushed them upward like invisible hands. They landed roughly inside the airlock of the Horizon Seeker. "Close it," Orin shouted. Mai hit the controls. The airlock sealed just as the entire temple imploded in utter silence, collapsing into a single point before dissolving into nothing. Outside the window, the in-between world dimmed. Colors died. Stars froze. The silence was growing stronger. "We need to leave," Orin said. "Now." In the control room, Orin placed the crystal on the main console. The moment it touched the surface, a wave of soft sound rippled through the ship. A gentle hum. A heartbeat. A living echo. Everyone froze. Lyra whispered, It has sound." Jonah slowly moved closer. "It's alive. Or something like alive." The crystal pulsed softly with each vibration, as if it were breathing. The glow inside it formed shifting patterns, almost like symbols. Mai ran a quick scan. "Captain, the crystal is emitting frequencies we've never detected before. Not harmful. But powerful." "What does it want?" Orin asked. Jonah's eyes widened. "I don't think it wants anything. I think it is something." "What?" Lyra asked. "The last sound," Jonah said quietly. "The final memory of the first ones. Everything they were trying to protect." The crystal pulsed again. A faint echo filled the room, soft, distant, like someone singing far away. It wasn't a melody. It wasn't a language. It was a promise. Orin felt something shift inside him. Fear, hope, determination, everything mixing at once. "We carry this now," he said. "We protect it. Whatever the silence is, whatever it wants, we don't let it take this." The crew nodded. But the ship suddenly shook. A deep vibration spread across the hull. "What was that?" Lyra asked. Mai checked her screen, and her face went pale. "Captain," the silence followed us. Outside the ship, the space around them darkened further. A shape appeared. A massive shadow. No form, no edges, just a presence that swallowed light. It moved like fog, but its size was monstrous, stretching farther than the eye could see. Jonah whispered, "Is that the silence?" "No," Mai said, trembling. "That's something inside it." The shadow pulsed, and all the sensors on the ship flickered. "It's feeding," Lyra said, her voice shaking. "It's feeding on sound. It's sucking it out of this whole realm." The shadow drifted closer. The hum of the engines began fading. The crystal dimmed. Their own breathing felt quieter. Orin clenched his fists. "Not again. We don't lose everything again." He hit the emergency power switch. The ship roared loudly for the first time in days. The shadow reacted violently, pulling back as if scared. "It can't stand loud sound," Mai said. "It's attacking silence. Not noise." Orin understood instantly. "Then we fight it with sound." "But we don't have enough," Lyra said. "Earth was already half muted when we launched." Orin turned to the glowing crystal. "We have this." Jonah swallowed. "Captain, if we use it, we might weaken it. Or worse, lose it." Orin shook his head. "The first ones gave this to us so that we could save the universe, not hide." The shadow surged forward again, stretching its darkness toward the hull. "No time," Mai said. "It's going to consume us." Orin placed his hand on the crystal. "Give us your voice," he whispered. The crystal pulsed. Then exploded with light. The room filled with blinding brightness. A wave of sound burst out of the crystal, expanding like a shockwave. It wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It was beautiful. A pure note that shimmered across the fading world. The shadow recoiled, its form twisting wildly. Cracks appeared in its darkness, like something was breaking it from inside. The entire in-between realm shook, as if the sound was stitching reality back together. The ship trembled as the wave passed through it. Mai clung to her console. "Captain, the wave is stabilizing the area around us. Pushing the silence back." Jonah stared in awe. "We're not just fighting it. We're healing the damage it caused." The shadow screamed. But the scream made no sound. The light from the crystal intensified. Then, the shadow shattered. It split apart like dust in a storm and dissolved into the fading air. The silence retreated, curling back into the distant void. The ship floated in calm again. The crystal dimmed, its glow weaker now, but still alive. Lyra touched her chest as she breathed again. "We did it." "No," Orin said quietly. "We survived. But the silence is still out there. And it's spreading." Jonah nodded slowly. "We have the last sound. The last echo of the first ones. But now the silence knows we have it." Mai looked up from her screen. "Captain, it marked us." Orin frowned. "What do you mean?" She turned her display toward him. A new signal had appeared. A pulse. Cold. Dark. Growing. "It's coming," Mai whispered. "And it won't stop." Orin closed his hand around the weakened crystal. "Then we don't stop either." The crystal dimmed in Orin's hand, pulsing weakly like a tired heartbeat. The ship drifted in the half-dead space, engines humming faintly, systems returning to life one section at a time. But the quiet around them, the unnatural, heavy quiet, remained. Mai stared at the growing dark pulse on her screens. "It's tracking us," she said. "Whatever we just fought, it wasn't the silence itself. It was only a part of it. A hunter." Jonah froze. "You mean there are more?" Lyra swallowed hard. "If that was a small one, how big is the real silence?" Orin didn't answer. He couldn't. His eyes were fixed on the fading crystal. Its glow still warmed his hand, but only barely. The first ones had given them this. The last sound. The last echo. The last hope. They had to protect it. But now the silence knew where it was. Jonah stepped closer. "Captain, maybe we should hide the crystal. Or shut it down. Or—" "No," Orin said firmly. "We carry it. And we find where it belongs." "Belongs?" Mai repeated. "Captain, this crystal is dangerous. The silence wants it. If we keep it, it will chase us forever." Orin looked out the window. "Then we fly forever." Lyra ran diagnostics on the ship while Mai scanned the corrupted realm around them. Jonah searched for clues in the ancient symbols the crystal had released earlier. Hours passed. The silence pulse grew larger behind them, moving slowly but steadily. Then Mai gasped. "Captain, you need to see this." He moved to her console. A map had formed, created by the crystal's frequency. Points of light appeared in a vast pattern, each one representing something, but the meaning was unclear. Jonah leaned over her shoulder. "These are stars, but they're dimmed. Fading." "Yes," Mai said softly. "This map shows every star that's been touched by the silence." Lyra stared at the growing darkness behind them. "How many worlds has it taken?" Mai zoomed out. There were thousands. Then tens of thousands. Then millions. Jonah whispered, horrified, "Entire galaxies." Orin's jaw tightened. "This isn't random. The silence is moving with purpose." Lyra frowned. "Toward what?" Mai tapped the screen. "Toward the center of the map. Everything is pointing inward." Orin looked at the glowing point. "What's at the center?" Mai's voice dropped to a whisper. "A star." Jonah blinked. "Just one star?" "No," Mai shook her head. "The first star. The origin. The source of the first sound ever made in the universe." The room fell silent. Jonah exhaled slowly. "If the silence consumes that star, the universe loses its last voice." "And everything dies," Lyra said. Orin nodded. Then that's where we're going. They set a course toward the first star light years away, unreachable by normal engines. But the in-between realm still surrounded them. Broken. Fading. Collapsing. Orin gave the order. Open a path. Input the calculations, her fingers trembling slightly. A corridor of light opened before them, stretching endlessly, shimmering like a river made of broken reflections. The ancient gateway system, Jonah whispered. This must be how the first ones traveled across galaxies. Lyra stared at the corridor. It looks unstable. It is, Mai said. But it's the only way. Once we enter, we can't stop. Orin gripped the controls. Then we make it count. The ship entered the corridor. Colors warped. Time stretched. Their voices echoed strangely, repeating themselves in softer and softer versions. Jonah covered his ears. The silence, it's inside the corridor. It's pulling our voices away. Lyra's breath came out thin. Captain, this place is eating sound. Orin held the crystal tightly. Its faint glow flickered brighter, shielding them. But the corridor shook violently. The silence is trying to collapse the path behind us, Mai shouted. And ahead of us, Jonah added, watching the screens. It's sealing every exit. Orin kept the ship steady. We pushed through. Halfway through the corridor, the lights dimmed. Not from power loss. But from fear. Shapes formed inside the mirrored walls. Not shadows. Not reflections. Silhouettes of beings. Tall. Faceless. Silent. Lyra stepped back. What are those? Mai's voice was unsteady. They're not alive. They're memory echoes. The corridor is showing us the last travelers who passed through here. Jonah swallowed. The first ones. The silhouettes watched the ship drift past. Their forms flickered, broken by ancient cracks. They seemed to reach out, as if urging the crew to turn back. Orin's hand tightened on the crystal. We can't turn back. They know that. They gave this to us. But then, the silhouettes shifted. Their forms twisted, turning darker. Longer. More monstrous. Mai gasped. They're changing. The silence is corrupting their memories. The creatures pressed closer to the corridor walls, silent screams forming in their shapeless mouths. Jonah stepped away from the window. Captain, they're trying to get in. The corridor walls cracked. Then shattered. The creatures spilled through the broken gaps like smoke given life. Lyra screamed. They're inside the ship. Mai hit emergency shields. Shields are failing. Jonah stared at the creatures. They're not attacking us. They're reaching for the crystal. Orin held the glowing sphere to his chest. No. He steadied himself, placed his free hand on the console, and focused every remaining power source into a pulse. Now. The ship emitted a burst of sound. Pure, bright, echoing. The creatures froze. Their forms dissolved into dust, swept away by the wave. The corridor repaired itself, sealing the cracks. Lyra collapsed into her chair. We barely survived that. Mai nodded. The silence is getting stronger. Jonah looked at Orin. Captain, if this continues, the crystal won't be able to protect us forever. Orin stared ahead into the shimmering path. Then we reach the first star before it's too late. Hours passed. Or days. Time had no meaning inside the endless corridor. The crystal pulsed weaker and weaker. Mai slept with her head against the console. Lyra's hands shook each time she checked the engines. Jonah scribbled notes, even though he didn't know if anyone would ever read them. Orin stayed awake, hand on the crystal, forcing himself to stay alert. The silence pulse behind them was growing. Getting closer. Then, finally, a new light appeared ahead. Soft. Warm. Alive. Mai lifted her head. Captain, is that? Jonah breathed shakily. The first star. The corridor began dissolving, leaving the ship drifting toward the most beautiful light they had ever seen. The star wasn't bright like normal stars, it shimmered like a living memory, golden and breathing. Lyra whispered, it's singing. A faint hum reached them. Not through the speakers. Not through air. Through their bones. It was the first real sound any of them had heard since Earth's collapse. Mai wiped tears from her eyes. We made it. Mai stared at her screen, unable to look away. It's restoring the fabric of sound. Everywhere. Across galaxies. Orin kept his hand on the crystal even as it broke apart completely. The crystal dissolved into golden dust. The last gift of the first ones was gone. But the star was alive again. And it sang. Its sound spread outward, rippling across the universe like circles in an infinite ocean. Everywhere, worlds that had been dying felt the echo. Stars shone brighter. Planets vibrated with life. The silence retreated, curling back into the void like a wounded beast. Jonah whispered, "We won." But Mai's face fell. "No," she said quietly. "Look." Beyond the glowing star, past the golden waves of restored sound. A darkness remained. Not fading. Not weakening. Growing. Lyra froze. "It's not gone." Mai nodded slowly. "We hurt it. But the silence is older than we thought. Ancient. Endless." Jonah swallowed. "Then what did we just do?" "We bought time," Orin said quietly. "Nothing more." The silence pulsed, sending out a cold wave that made the ship shake. Mai stared at her screen. "Captain, it's learning. Changing." Lyra's voice trembled. "It knows we can hurt it." Jonah's hands shook. "It won't stop now. It'll hunt us even harder." Orin stepped forward, looking out at the distant shadow. "We lit the first flame. We gave the universe a voice again." He turned to his crew. "But the war is just beginning." The wave that traveled through space was more than energy. It carried memories, voices, dreams, and the last strength of the infinite ones. As it filled the dark void, it made the cold space tremble with life. Kale stood in the center of the ship, eyes closed, listening. The wave sounded like a choir of 1,000,000 souls whispering their final wish. The wish was simple: live. Continue. Do not fade. Ilara touched the glowing sphere gently. The sphere felt warm, as if someone's hand was holding hers. "It is delaying their end," she said softly. "But we cannot stop it. We can only carry them farther." Kale nodded. "For them, we will go beyond any limit." The world of broken orbits. The ship reached a strange region of space where planets no longer moved in circles. They drifted like broken stones in a giant river. Each planet had cracks glowing with soft blue light. These were ruins of a once great civilization. Their orbits had been shattered long ago by something powerful. No life remained, only the cold shapes of cities floating through the darkness. Rhea stared in silence. "This place, it looks like everything ended in one moment." Kale looked at the planets carefully. "The infinite ones warned us about powerful dangers. Maybe this is one of them." They were right. Something was waiting among the ruins. The guardian of the lost system. A massive figure rose from the shadows between the broken planets. It was not a creature, but a machine, an ancient guardian. Its body shone like metal stars, and its eyes glowed red. It moved slowly, but its presence filled the entire region with fear. Rhea gasped. "Is that alive?" Ilara answered, "It is not alive. It is protecting something." The guardian's voice echoed like thunder. "Turn back. No being is permitted to cross the gate of silence." Kale stepped forward. "We carry the last light of those who are dying. We must go on." The guardian's eyes brightened with anger. "All light fades here. This is the law of the forgotten system." But the wave of the infinite ones flowed out of the ship. The guardian paused. Its giant body trembled. It spoke again, softer this time. "You carry the memory of a dying heaven. But even that cannot change what lies ahead." Kale clenched his fists. "Then test us." The battle that should have ended them. The guardian attacked with beams of white fire. The ship shook violently. Panels broke, sparks flew, and alarms screamed. Rhea tried to shield them with an energy barrier, but the power was too strong. Ilara struggled to stabilize the engines. Kale held onto the controls with all his strength. The guardian swung its giant arms, sending waves of destruction toward them. Planets nearby cracked into dust. For a moment, It felt like the voyage would end here. Then, the sphere in Ilara's hands began to shine with blinding brilliance. The energy of the Infinite Ones burst outward and wrapped the ship in a shield of golden light. The Guardian stopped moving. Impossible, it whispered. The shield pushed the Guardian back. Its ancient armor cracked. Its lights dimmed. Finally, with a loud echo across the broken system, the Guardian collapsed into silence. The gate beyond death. Where the Guardian once stood, a massive gate made of pure darkness appeared. It was taller than planets and wider than any star. The gate looked like a hole in the universe itself. Even Kale felt fear. "What is this place?" he whispered. Ilara answered in a trembling voice. The Infinite Ones called it the threshold of ending. They said even gods fear it. Rhea took a deep breath. "Then why are we here?" Kale looked at both of them. "Because the journey is not just about saving them. It is about learning what waits beyond all endings." The sphere pulsed again. It wanted them to continue. Rhea whispered, "They still trust us. Even while dying." Kale placed his hand on the controls. "Then we go where no living being has ever gone." The ship slowly moved toward the gate. A voice from the void. As they approached, a voice echoed from the darkness of the gate. It was neither loud nor soft. It simply existed, like the universe speaking. "Who seeks to cross the final door?" Kale spoke clearly. "We are the last voyagers. We carry the memories of those who refused to die in silence." The voice paused. Then it spoke again, this time with a hint of sorrow. "Then come, travelers of light. Come and learn why even stars must end." The gate opened. A bright storm of swirling colors appeared inside, like a tunnel leading into infinity. Kale tightened his grip on the controls. "Hold on. We're going in." The ship entered the gate. Behind them, the broken worlds became tiny points of fading light. As the ship crossed the gate, the world around them changed completely. There were no stars, no planets, and no darkness. Instead, they floated through a glowing ocean of colors that moved like living winds. Rhea pressed her hands against the window. "It feels like we're inside a dream," Ilara whispered. "Or inside the thoughts of something very old." Kale kept the ship steady. He could feel a pressure pushing on their minds, as if the universe itself was watching them. The land of unborn worlds. Slowly, shapes began forming around them, blurry, glowing shadows of planets. But these planets were not finished. Some were only half-formed spheres of dust. Some were only outlines. Some flickered as if deciding whether to exist or disappear. Ilara studied the readings with wide eyes. "These worlds, they're not real yet. They are ideas. Unborn possibilities." Rhea added softly, "Maybe this is where the universe creates new stars." Kale felt a chill. "But why would the Infinite Ones send us here? What are we supposed to learn?" Before anyone could answer, something moved in the glowing mist. The architect. A figure appeared. It was tall, graceful, and made entirely of shifting light. Its face had no features, only a soft glow where eyes might have been. Each step it took created waves in the glowing ocean. The three voyagers felt a deep silence fill their minds. The figure spoke without sound. "Welcome, keepers of the last voice." Ilara stepped forward slowly. "Are you a god?" The figure's light dimmed and brightened as if amused. "Humans use that word too softly. I am one who shapes possibility. The Infinite Ones were my children." Rhea gasped. Kale froze. "The Infinite Ones had a maker, and you let them die. The truth of the Infinite Ones." The architect lowered its head, and its light dimmed in sadness. "They were not meant to last forever. Nothing is. I gave them endless lifespans. But not immortality." Ilara shook her head. "But their world is collapsing. Their light is ending." The architect replied. "They have lived 4 million of ages. When any being carries too much memory, the weight becomes greater than existence itself." Rhea stepped forward. "So they are dying because they lived too long?" "Yes. They reached the limit of what a soul can endure." Kale clenched his fists. "But they didn't want to die. They refused to fade in silence." They sent us to find a way. The architect's voice grew softer. There is no way to stop their end. But there is a way to give meaning to it. The seed of continuation. The sphere in Ilara's hands glowed heavily. The architect stretched out a hand of pure light. Their last gift. The energy you carry is a seed. Ilara asked, a seed for what? For a new civilization. A new kind of life. Not as powerful as them, but free from the burden of endless ages. Kale felt the truth settle on his heart. They didn't send us to save them. They sent us to carry their memory into the future. The architect nodded. Yes. You are their messengers. And their beginning. Rhea whispered. We didn't come to witness their death. We came to carry their rebirth. A darkness that should not be here. Suddenly, the glowing ocean dimmed. The colors darkened. A deep tremor shook the realm. The architect raised its head sharply. No. It followed you. Kale gripped the controls. What followed us? The architect's voice turned urgent. The void that destroyed the broken system. The force that even the infinite ones feared. It comes to erase possibility itself. Ilara's heart raced. You mean, the thing that shattered planets? Yes. And now it seeks the seed you carry. The darkness grew thicker, like a storm of nothingness swallowing light. The architect spread its arms. Prepare yourselves. This battle will not be for survival, but for the future of everything they left behind. Kale, Rhea, and Ilara stood together, their faces steady. The infinite voyage was no longer a journey. It had become a war for the meaning of life itself.